The desert was silent except for the faint hiss of wind against burning sand. Smoke curled from a wrecked Humvee, twisting toward a pale blue sky scarred by the echo of gunfire. 7 Navy SEALs crouched behind jagged rocks, trapped, pinned down, and out of time. Every radio call had gone unanswered. Every air support request had been denied. The enemy was closing in, shadows moving like ghosts through the dust. They were America's best, trained, hardened, fearless, but even they knew what was coming. Hope was gone. Then, just as despair began to settle like the desert heat, the distant thunder of a jet engine rolled over the horizon. It was faint at first, almost like a whisper, but then it grew, screaming louder and louder until the sound tore through the sky like the voice of an angel made of fire and metal. The SEALs looked up. One of them, his face caked with sand and blood, muttered a single word under his breath. "No way. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. This story will remind you that sometimes, the ones the world overlooks are the ones who save it." 2 days earlier, far from the chaos of that desert ridge, a man named Ethan Cole was mopping the floors of a military hangar in Nevada. He wore a faded janitor's uniform, sleeves rolled up, revealing arms once built by flight suits and steel. His eyes were tired, but when he looked at the framed photos hanging on the hangar wall, rows of A-10 Thunderbolts gleaming in the sunlight, a flicker of something old sparked inside him. Ethan had once been a pilot, not just any pilot, but one of the Air Force's best. The A-10 Warthog had been his home in the sky, its engines his heartbeat. But life had a cruel way of cutting wings. His wife, Lily, had died 5 years ago in a car accident, leaving him with a 4-year-old son and a promise to never leave that boy behind. So he grounded himself. He left the cockpit, the glory, and the life he loved. He took the only job he could near the base, as a janitor, sweeping the same floors where he used to walk in his flight suit. He told no one who he was. He didn't want sympathy. He didn't want the pity that came with being a fallen hero. He just wanted to keep his son, Jake, safe, to see him grow, to be there every day like Lily couldn't. Every night after work, he'd sit with Jake on their worn couch, flying toy planes through the air as they made the sounds of engines together. Jake would always laugh. "Dad, you sound like the real one." And Ethan would smile softly. "One day, maybe you'll fly one too." But fate doesn't always wait for one day. That same week, the SEAL team deployed to a classified desert zone on the other side of the world. Their mission, extract a captured intelligence officer before dawn. But something went wrong. The enemy had anticipated the operation. A convoy was hit by an RPG, the extraction chopper was shot down, and communication with the base was lost. By the time the report reached Nevada, the SEALs were listed as presumed lost. Command considered a rescue, but the storm overhead made it impossible. Every available pilot was either too far or already deployed. The window to save them was closing. That night, as Ethan was finishing his shift, he overheard 2 officers arguing near the command office. "We can't send anyone. Visibility's 0, one said. "Then they're done," replied the other, his voice heavy with defeat. Ethan froze mid-step, mop still dripping. "Done?" The word cut into him like shrapnel. He shouldn't have cared. He wasn't a pilot anymore. He had no clearance, no call sign, no reason to risk his life again. But deep inside, the old instinct burned awake, the one that had always told him, when someone's in trouble, you don't walk away. He walked to the edge of the hangar, staring out at the storm that rolled like black smoke across the desert. The wind whipped his uniform, and he thought of Lily's voice. "Promise me you'll live, Ethan." He had. But what was living if not this, being who he was born to be? He made his choice. At 2:17 a.m., alarms blared as hangar guards spotted an unauthorized figure climbing into an A-10 Thunderbolt. By the time they reached the runway, the engines were already roaring to life. The jet screamed down the tarmac and lifted into the storm, vanishing into the darkness. The command tower tried to reach him. "Unknown pilot, identify yourself!" The radio hissed back with one word, a ghost from the past. "Hog 1. The name echoed through the control room like thunder. Ethan Cole. The janitor who once saved an entire unit in Kandahar with a single pass. The man who disappeared. Now, he was back. Through the storm, Ethan's hands moved with a steady grace that only muscle memory could know. Lightning flashed across his canopy. Rain pounded like bullets. He set his course for the coordinates he'd overheard. He had no backup, no permission, no guarantee he'd even make it there. But he had something stronger, a reason. He thought of Jake, asleep in his small bed back home, and whispered, "Dad's gotta do one more thing, buddy." Hours later, on that ridge halfway across the world, the SEALs had accepted their fate. Ammo low. Wounds deep. The enemy, relentless. One of them clutched a photo of his family. Another whispered a prayer. And then, the sky changed. The ground trembled as a sound rolled over the mountains. The distinct growl of twin General Electric TF-34 engines, low, guttural, unmistakable. It was the sound of a monster that eats tanks for breakfast. The sound of salvation. The SEALs looked up to see the A-10 break through the storm clouds, sunlight catching its gray wings. It tilted, almost as if nodding to them, before diving straight into the chaos. The first pass was thunder itself. Cannon fire erupted from the nose, the iconic BRRT that every soldier knows by heart. The sand exploded. Enemy vehicles burst into flame. Men scattered like shadows under a sun too bright to bear. The SEALs cheered, screaming into the wind, their hope reborn in the scream of the jet. Ethan made 3 passes, each one closer, sharper, deadlier. His mind was a blur of instinct and focus. When his systems warned of fuel running low, he ignored it. When his targeting radar jammed, he went manual. He'd been away from the sky for years, but up here, he wasn't the janitor anymore. He was Hog 1. He guided the SEALs' extraction by smoke signal and strafed every ridge that threatened them. Finally, a rescue helicopter broke through the horizon, following his trail of destruction. The SEALs were airlifted out, every one of them alive. As the chopper pulled away, the pilot looked down and saw the A-10 climbing back into the clouds. "Who the hell is that?" he asked over the comms. The SEAL leader, his voice breaking with disbelief, replied, "Whoever he is, he just saved our lives." Back at base, the runway was lined with silent personnel as the A-10 limped home. Its paint was scorched, fuel near empty. When it landed, the canopy opened, and out stepped Ethan Cole, the janitor, covered in sweat, eyes red from exhaustion. No one spoke. The commander himself approached slowly, disbelief written across his face. "You broke every rule in the book," he said quietly. Ethan nodded, staring down. "Yes, sir." The commander paused, then saluted. "Then maybe it's time we rewrote that book." For the first time in years, Ethan smiled. Not because he was proud, but because he felt Lily beside him. Somewhere in that silence, he could almost hear her whisper, "You lived." That evening, Ethan drove home. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the world gold. When he opened the door, Jake ran into his arms. "Dad, you're home!" he shouted. Ethan hugged him tight, feeling the heartbeat that made every risk worth it. "Yeah, buddy," he whispered. "Dad's home." Months later, the SEAL team visited Nevada to personally thank the man who had saved them. They didn't find a janitor that day. They found a hero. The same hangar he used to mop now held a plaque with his name engraved in steel. Major Ethan Cole, who flew for those who had no one left to fly for them. The A-10 he had flown that day, scarred, dented, and proud, stood in the background, retired and silent. And every time Jake visited the